Hello and welcome to Absolute Comics with Benny and Sal without Benny and with Dan. It's the longer name. This is a longer version of the show. It is myself and Sal. Sal, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How about you?
I am doing quite well. We're just going to go ahead and jump on into the topics that I found this morning. Starting off with Zack Snyder news, as you kind of can't read the news without Zack Snyder showing up at some point.
Right.
Zack Snyder had big plans for Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, to make her fill the role of Batman after he sacrifices himself and hold the role until the powerless child of Superman and Lois would become Batman when he was of age. Now, the reason why I put this in the topics today was because when I first read it, I was like, oh my goodness, that's crazy cool. That would be fun to read. And then I realized that's Zack just constantly trying to stay in the news and hype all the fans up.
Yeah.
Because he knows it'll work. I mean, it worked with the Snyder Cut.
Yep.
That he got his 4-hour epic of a movie, which we will talk about later. And if you want to hear Benny and Sal talk about it, check out Absolutely Marvel and DC. They do a great discussion over there. So yeah, what do you think? Like a Barbara Gordon Batgirl in the Snyderverse?
It sounds like it would work. It sounds like in this universe, this version of Batgirl, the circumstances by which she becomes the replacement de facto Batman, it seems pretty in keeping with what we know the Snyderverse to be. The only surprise, I guess, is that he would be willing to get rid of Batman altogether and replace him with anybody. But the idea that eventually she would be supplanted by essentially a Superman son makes me it makes perfect sense to me. It kind of clicks into place because throughout, he made Man of Steel and you could tell right away he was like, oh, God, they wouldn't give me the Batman movie because they wanted to start with Superman. But I'll get there. And then eventually, the Man of Steel 2 became Batman vs. Superman. The Batman vs. Superman movie was more of his kind of this is what I want to do with Batman movie. And Justice League, you see from the Snyder Cut, just how much of affinity he has for Batman. We don't see any other real elements of Central City, Metropolis. Perry White doesn't even make an appearance, but Commissioner Gordon is cast and shot and he's in there. We see a lot of Gotham in that movie and you could tell right away he wanted to make a Batman movie. And it's just for him to go, yeah, no, the new Batman would be Superman's son is oh my God, dude, just let somebody else do Superman. If you don't want to do Superman that badly that you're willing to make the next Superman into a Batman, it's just a perfect metaphor for what he was doing.
Right.
But yeah.
No, so when I was reading it and based on your comment of the killing off Batman,
yeah.
When I read this, honestly, whenever Zack Snyder comes out with some sort of plan of, oh, I wanted to do this, oh, I thought this would be really cool.
Yeah.
I always feel like he puts in a lot of just shock factor. He goes, you know what will get people to watch this? If I kill Batman.
Right.
Because you go, even if you're not the biggest fan, you're like, okay, in a weird way, I want to see Batman die because he never really dies and stays dead.
No.
What is Snyder going to do? Because he clearly would turn it into this full-on thing.
Yeah.
And, this was entirely just a shock value because, if you saw the Snyder Cut in the epilogue, there's a couple shock factor things where I'm sure there are going to be a lot of fans that are like, well, now we need this. If HBO Max did the Snyder Cut of Justice League, what's to stop them from doing this other one that I won't spoil because we're not talking about right now and people don't want spoilers yet.
Sure.
But yeah, I thought it was cool. I think it would be really fun if Batgirl did actually become the new Batman. Just because very often you go, oh, Dick Grayson. One of the Robins.
Right.
That's just who you immediately go to. So when I saw Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, the fact of how much he also likes using Jim Gordon, in the interview, he did talk about this would be towards when Jim Gordon would be stepping down. It would be kind of a cool, multifaceted approach to the character of she is a cop's daughter, but she's also now Batman.
Right. She's on the other side of the law, more or less. I mean, it also sounds from the article that he's kind of like, yeah, I had this idea, like we really, they only focus on the movie that they're making. They could like have board meetings and discussions and maybe even like scripts or outlines for stuff in the future. But when they're making the movie, they're kind of making that movie. And I can imagine him going like, oh, it'd be kind of cool. Like they set up a couple of like interesting elements in the Snyder Cut that you're like, oh, that was not in the last cut. And oh, I guess that has like far reaching impact in the future. But again, I'm not going to spoil it. So, but the idea of him like clearly having there's some measure of truth to him being like, no, I had some ideas for Barbara Gordon and I have intentions for Batgirl. And it's like, okay, like you did. But as you see, he's like kind of trails off where he's like, then Batgirl would have been the mentor for Superman's son. But like we're really kind of just getting into wishful thinking. Like he wasn't even close to the younger man ascending to become Batman. Like he's just kind of like, Batgirl was part of the plan. Who knows if she would have even been the plan, because we've heard rumors about Batgirl movies before. I think that like the most recent one, I don't remember this. I feel like Whedon was going to work on a Batgirl movie like as recently as a few years ago.
Interesting.
But again, it's just kind of like, it's funny. I guess I wouldn't be surprised because Hollywood in their infinite wisdom is like, yeah, we've never done that. Sexy Batman, I'm in. As opposed to like, well, Batgirl, Barbara Gordon's such a rich character, and we can explore the legacy of the character, and the dichotomy of daughter and son and father. And it's like, oh, what? No, we don't. I don't know anything about that character. Just Batman, but it's a girl, hair, got it. Interested. Moving on. So I don't know. It's funny to hear. I would not be surprised based on how they rolled out the Snyder Cut if Batgirl being like a mentor character in the future or like ascending to replace Batman in his future. If it's not like the first of many different interesting revelations about what Snyder had planned for the future, in the near future. Like if we wouldn't hear in another 2 days, let's say, like, oh, you know what else I had planned?
Right.
This other thing.
It would be like, Batgirl gets with Dick Grayson. They have a kid, but that kid's got powers and he's now the new Superman.
Exactly. Yeah, no. I would not be surprised if we hear about Dick Grayson and his plans for that character, or maybe his intentions for, maybe determining what Robin it was who was in the trophy room in the next couple days, just because he's like, oh, now that the Snyder Cut's out, like, what else are they going to talk about? Not my zombie movie, I'll tell you that.
He's got a zombie movie?
Yeah. I think it's going to come out on HBO Max, but like and I don't know if it's like a sequel to his Dawn of the Dead, which I loved. It's called Army of the Dead. And it's coming. I think May. I think end of May.
So soon.
Yeah, no, it's like it's done. It's just yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have not heard anything about Zack Snyder other than the Snyder Cut in the past probably year or so. And by year, I mean since Justice League came out. I just don't know when that came out exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys do want to hear our opinions on the Snyder Cut, we will be talking about that at the end of the podcast. Moving on to our next topic, we've got DC increases the price of many comics to $6 each, with most of the new Infinite Frontier comics being 30-plus pages each. Yes. Honestly, I think this is fine. Like, a lot of people are kind of looking at it as, like, comics have been $3 or $4 my entire life. Why would you change it? It's like, well, first off, inflation.
Yeah.
Second off, they are, or at least with Infinite Frontier, they've started getting back into including multiple stories, the backup stories, but just giving you a lot more comic in a single issue. And I think it's worth the $6. I honestly think that this is a smart move by them, since, I mean, I don't know whether or not it's true of financial troubles at DC Comics, but
yeah, we don't know anything. I mean, like, honestly, any commentary on like whether DC is like, ever flirted with the idea of being up for sale or anything like that.
Don't worry.
All conjecture. We have no idea.
Oh, don't worry. That's a topic later in today's podcast.
Huzzah.
But yeah, so what do you think that this will change either how many comics people buy, whether people even are going to buy comics or anything like that? Or do you think this is going to be one of those outrage? Okay, we're okay with it now.
Yeah, right? I know that people are already outraged. Like, I know that there has already been, like, angry, vitriolic reaction to the concept of upping DC Comics prices to $6. Obviously, because the article comes from Bleeding Cool, it is deliberately sensationalized and trying to get people to click on it. We also know that, like, it's not just an arbitrary increase. It's not like they're just going like across the board from now on, DC Comics is gonna be $6. Like it because the last time I saw DC ever say anything about like their prices being fixed, they said holding the line at $2.99. Like they said that and then immediately raised their prices. So I feel like if there are books that are going to be going up to $6.99, the reason for that increase has a lot to do with recouping some investment because of course they also made some like significant structural changes internally. Not only did they lay off a significant amount of staff and editors, but also they seemed to get rid of quite a bit of their exclusivity contracts, which will save them a lot of money in the long run. The $6.99, I think, is just another budgetary decision, but not without its own justification because a lot of these books are also being given extra book to go in them. Either the books are longer or more likely they're getting other books crammed into them. For example, if you picked up Justice League this week or this past week, it came with Justice League Dark. I don't think Justice League Dark is coming back as a book. It's going to be a backup book in the pages of Justice League because they know, at the very least, Justice League, the book, sells. We can count on this book to sell. And we can probably up the price on that book because we're basically selling you 2 books. Even though you didn't ask for Justice League Dark, you're getting it anyway.
Exactly. Like they're raising the price for good reason. You're getting what your money's worth. Getting your money's worth. So I'm actually going to go into the next topic because you did talk about the selling of DC Comics. The Walking Dead creator, Robert Kirkman, is in potential talks to purchase DC Comics.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack from this. The biggest one, of course, is that it comes from an erroneous source.
Yes, so this is true.
It's almost certainly made up just for click. Like, this is one of those things where I don't even think there's a grain of truth attached to it. I think this is just people needed or wanted clicks, and the DC Comics up for grabs conversation, that's old news, baby. We talked about that already. Like, that's stuff that already came up, and from what I understand, it came and went. Like, there was some conjecture about that. Again, all hearsay, all rumor, no confirmations. But we heard rumors like Marvel put in a bid, but DC apparently they wanted too much for what they valued themselves on. And it just sounds like a bunch of BS to me, to be honest. But then but that was weeks ago. And then for it to come back, it sounds like it's just a bunch of opportunists who are like, what is a thing that got me clicks 2 or 3 weeks ago? Because right now there's like a slow news cycle, especially given that, I could have piggybacked off of the success of the Snyder Cut, but Zack Snyder literally came onto some of our channels and told us that we were racist to our face. So we're probably going to drop off of that. What else can we talk about? What else are people outraged about? So for me, the story isn't even like, will Robert Kirkman buy DC? Because here's the thing. If Disney thinks that DC is too expensive, Robert Kirkman can't afford DC.
Right.
If Amazon, the owner of Comixology, isn't putting in a bid for DC Comics, which would be one of the best decisions they could make.
Oh, yeah, that would be genius. Especially with Comixology.
Yeah, you throw away the DC Infinite app, you replace it with Comixology, make DC Comics exclusively Comixology and retailer, and you just and Bezos gets the both slices of the pie, so to speak. You get the digital market and the direct market. Which is, we've argued, like the direct market, like the comic book stores, that's the biggest slice of the monthly comics sales. But yeah, I think the real story here is just like desperate channels and websites, desperate for clicks, making up stuff. Here it is, because that's exactly what I think this is.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But humoring the idea of Robert Kirkman doing it, I think if anything, we would just get ongoing series of every single comic that just never end.
Right.
And like, I feel like that would be what probably one of the biggest changes would be instead of them going, hey, Tom King, you've got 100 issues for Batman, have fun. You'd be like, all right, don't stop ever.
Nope. Yep. Just 1,000 issues, however many you can do until you run out of steam. And then we'll make a big announcement, or we won't make any announcement. We'll just end the book. Because I think he did that with Walking Dead, where he was just like, oh, by the way, the next one's the last one.
I think, yeah, it was just like an out of the blue, I'm done.
Yeah.
Final.
Oh, by the way, it's the next issue that's being solicited. Yeah, that's the last issue. So you're screwed, retailers. Ha ha ha. Sorry you couldn't get pre-orders up. But yeah, I like. Okay, so I had a conversation. I kind of want to like make this a bigger talk on another show, but like,
okay.
I will mention that like part of the reason why Netflix was so successful is because it was one-stop shopping. It was the place for all the shows and movies, and I think that's like how they got deep pockets enough to be like a content generator. Like Netflix, the model does not work for creating your own content, or it allows you to dabble. You know, you can make documentaries because they're cheaper, or you could make passion projects for creators who are super hyped up. You know, like if in the heyday of Netflix, when they had The Office, if Steve Carell wanted to like star in and co-produce like a movie that's 90 minutes, they would have funded it.
Oh yeah.
But they're not in the business of making shows, and it's why their business model for making shows kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the future / the past of content creation and content absorption is one-stop shopping. It's why the webcomic model is more or less dead, and the webtoons model is very much alive.
Right.
People just want to go to one website and just get their shit. And I think that one day, monthly comic books will go that way too.
I would not be surprised.
Right? But maybe that's where it should go. Like that maybe one-stop shopping will be the way to save monthly capes and tights comics.
Yeah. And I'll throw out before I jump to the next one, because I've seen this a couple times, on regard to the online reading one-stop shop. A great example is Deadpool Samurai, which is currently the most read Marvel comic / manga out there right now. It is free. Like, it is free in the Shonen Jump in Japan, but it currently almost consistently gets at least 1 million reads per issue.
Oh my god!
Yes, and it was a great. When I did see it, I've been wanting to put it on the topics, but I don't know. Because it was free, I just kind of ignored it, because it's like, you get 1 million reads, but no one has to buy it, so is it really that big of a thing? But I'm kind of hoping it comes to America, or at least Comixology or something like that, because I really want to give it a chance. Deadpool Samurai, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But yeah, like that. I mean, that's a great example, though, of online reading, especially when it is free. It gets the publicity out there, because you could easily go, hey, Deadpool Samurai, it's free. If you like it, try out this Deadpool one. It's only, I don't know, $20 for the trade. Try it out. You might enjoy it. And thank you for posting the link in chat for our viewers. But actually, moving on to our next official topic. Actually, no. Did you want to say anything about the Deadpool Samurai before I just skip over that?
That's a brilliant marketing strategy and a bold move. I hope it works out for them. I love this idea, but it's true. Like, giving it to the reality is, and I've said this for years, as long as you reduce the barrier to entry and make it as thin as possible, that's how you're going to save comics. And it's like, because really, like, if you, I see it all the time on subreddits and stuff, where people go like, I'm new to comics. Where do I start? What do I do? I want to read comic books. And it's like, oh, well, where do you start? And it's like, how can you start? Well, if you want to read them month to month, I guess you have to go to a comic book store. I live in Utah. It's 100 miles away. Okay, never mind. I guess you could go online. There's so many barriers to entry when it comes to getting into comics, even if it's a social barrier of like the stigma of going to a comic book store or reading comics in general or reading them in public, which is why digital is, like, I think a great shorthand. But giving away a comic for free, it certainly was the webcomics model. I don't think it is a successful model. It only lasts 10 years, but giving it away for free is not a million views. It's not bad. I mean, that's what we do. That's our model. Here's the content. It's for free. You know, theoretically, we could get 1 million views. You know, as long as it's free and 1 million people want it.
Exactly, and it just gets it out there. Like,
yes.
and honestly, even if you don't read it, you hear, oh, 1 million people read that, even though normally it's, I mean, maybe a couple 100,000, if that.
Yep.
Like, that gets the attention of people to go, like, I'm sure that we've got a lot of people in chat right now that are like, I want to go read Deadpool Samurai.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds awesome, and it's free.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's in English or not, but I'm sure you could probably find a translation if it is not.
Yeah, I don't think it is in it is in English, but yeah, somebody mentioned like, well, the problem is what's the retention? And I'm like, well, it's new, so it is a thing that didn't exist before the model. 1 million views, any number that is not 0 is net profit or is net gain, right? You give it with the first one for free, you sell only 200,000 copies or only 50,000 copies. That's 50,000 units sold where there were 0. So doesn't matter. The point is getting the eyes. 1 million views. Listen, people do that on TikTok for 1 million friggin' loops or views or whatever, and they do it for nothing. Except maybe a sponsorship. But those clicks, those looks, that's what matters, even if it doesn't directly translate into sales. And with comic books, it does.
Yeah,
so
it definitely does. All right, so moving on to our next topic, which, by the way, I don't know if you've been purposefully setting up these transitions, but you keep saying things that are perfect for going to the next one because you were talking about Netflix, and I know I saw you respond to a tweet, so I'll let our fans know about it. Keanu Reeves' book BRZRKR has already been approved for getting a live-action movie as well as an anime on Netflix, with Keanu Reeves producing and starring as the main character in both. He will be voicing the main character in the anime. I even included in here, not much of a surprise.
No. I am Jack's complete lack of surprise.
Yeah.
Like, what? When the hype train started for BRZRKR, like when they announced it, before a page was released, people were like, Keanu Reeves is producing a book. My reaction, and I think a million people's reaction was, so you're cowboys and aliensing it. Mm-hmm. You're creating a book that will like get sales, hype, and maybe awards, or at the very least generate the hype necessary to get a passion project or even just like a profit project off the ground. Mm-hmm. Because that's really what it is. Like, Hollywood is like, we're literally just taking millions of dollars and putting it on one color or the other and betting the house on it. But some ways to inflate the odds on that are, well, we're using a franchise, or it has a built-in audience, or look at all these reviews of this thing that we're leveraging to release in our wheelhouse. So with BRZRKR, it's like, we release BRZRKR, it costs way less than making a movie. We get the hype of Keanu Reeves being involved and literally being drawn to be the character. And then we put it out there. We get the hype rolling in for it because retailers and comic book fans and news outlets are like, a comic book with Keanu Reeves? Click! Then it comes out, and you're like, yup, this is a movie, or maybe the first 10 minutes of one, in comic book form. And if it's good, which it is, objectively, the book is cool and action-oriented. There's virtually no dialogue, and it's the dialogue that is there just services the concept that they're pitching, which is just the Eternal Warrior from Valiant, but he,
pretty much
meets John Wick. But that's cool. And so there's this great movie that's from the 90s called Airheads, where a group of idiots take over a radio station and they're in a band and nobody listens to their music. And one of the things that they want is a record contract. And the record executive who's seeing it on TV is like, if the song's in English, it's a gold record at least. Like, because of the publicity around this band. In this case, it's like, if the comic's in English, it'll sell. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is. It's just like, yeah. So them saying, so it turns out our strategy of trying to get a Netflix deal and an animated series worked. It's like, yeah. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's... Because if you have not read it, by the way, guys, BRZRKR, while it is a concept that we have seen multiple times, it was fun. It was a fun read. I enjoyed it, and when I saw this news, I was not surprised, but at the same time, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch both of them. Like, it sounds fun, and it'll also be cool to see this one in the multiple takes on it of live action versus anime, because in anime you can go so much more over the top, whereas the live action, you want it to have that more realistic John Wick feel. I'm just going to use that as a comparison because Keanu Reeves was perfect in that, and this is so much like it. That I am excited to see both takes on it, and the fact that Keanu is producing both of them really makes you go, okay, I have faith in this because it is the creator. It's kind of like when people are enamored with the Avatar series, and they're like, oh, the original creators of Last Airbender are on this? I'm in.
Yep.
I don't even need to know anything.
The live action project? I guess I'm out.
Exactly. But so this one I also included in here for the sake of, I kind of hope this works out incredibly well so that we can potentially see some more famous, very well-known actors that have those passion projects that they really have wanted to do, have wanted to work on, come to fruition. Like, this was a great idea. The GoFundMe or a Kickstarter got tons of like publicity. They, I think, funded it within a day or something like that. Yeah. Like, it sold 400,000 copies. It did so well that it was immediately Netflix. And I'm excited to see what this has for the future of comic books, movie, television related to comic book stuff. Like, even if it's just simply, because I mean, you could go Valiant hires Keanu Reeves. He's going to be writing his version of Eternal Warrior, and people would go, I will read that. It's Keanu Reeves. Like, I love him. I will give Valiant a shot for this. So there's a lot of different stuff with that, because I mean, imagine what this is doing for Boom Studios right now.
Boom Studios is enjoying a renaissance that they've never seen before, with Something's Killing the Children, with Once and Future, with their own line, and of course with the runaway success of BRZRKR. They are a force to be reckoned with. They're a power player in the industry now, and they should be very proud of themselves for their brilliant business strategy.
Oh yeah,
because it's good for them. The other thing is, I understand the frustrations with comic books selling on a monthly basis, the top book like 160,000 copies, and it's like, oh, and unless you do a gimmick, and then it's like 200,000, or if you do a sequel to Dark Knight, it's 300,000. Right. But that's kind of it. That's your glass ceiling, is like really 160, 200,000 copies, and then this book sells 500,000 to 600,000 copies in the first issue, and it's because Keanu Reeves made a really lousy video where he's like. Because I don't know if you saw it, it's like he's a hostage, where he's just like, I worked on a comic book, and I'm reading from a prompter, and I'm only doing one take. And it's just like, just word of mouth and Keanu Reeves' good faith, boom, book sells like crazy. No pun intended. And on one hand, I get like the manipulation of the marketplace, where it's like, you're just leveraging the good faith and fandom of Keanu Reeves to exploit the comic book industry so that you can get Hollywood to pay attention to a pitch they probably would have greenlit if you just pitched it to them anyway.
Right.
But 600,000 copies is still 600,000 copies. That's 600,000 new readers, because it's not just everyone in the comic book market reading BRZRKR. Because if it was the top book every month, it'll be 600,000 copies. So obviously we're bringing in 500,000, 450,000 more readers, conceivably. And let's even cut it in half. Just say the speculators market, everybody bought 2. Right? So you're talking about tens, if not hundreds of thousands of new readers who read this, who are familiar with the format. Because people talk about this all the time, and I'll promise it's connected. They compare manga and Western comics, and like manga outsells Western comics by 6-1. Western comics just need to be manga, and it's like, first of all, no. Secondly, culturally speaking, manga is more normalized in Japan than it is in America. Manga itself is less normalized than Western comics in culture here in America and the Western world. So what you need to do if you want to fix Western comics or sell them to people is you got to change the culture itself. You need to make comic books or the format and the medium normalized enough for people to have removed the stigma attached to the experience. It's not apples and apples, it's apples and oranges. And if you're selling a Keanu Reeves comic book to 600,000 people, that is a great step in the right direction of normalization for comic books, which at the end of the day is what we want. You know, many of us I know are comic book fans because it's a specialized market, and it's a place where you know it and you feel special. But I promise you, you get better stuff, you get new creators, you get innovation if you expand and you normalize. So on one hand, I'm like, what? Keanu Reeves' comic book is going to be a show that clearly was the plan in the first place? Yeah. But maybe as a consequence, maybe in his efforts to literally step on the head of the comic book industry to get to this movie that he's producing, we can also benefit in the comic book industry of when you stepped on my head, some change fell out of your pocket, and now I can get some of it, and it's that sucks, but it's any port in a storm at this point. Come on, maybe it's new readers, and that's always a good thing. It doesn't hurt the comic book industry for this book to be successful, or for his book to be a movie or a show or an anime or something.
Right,
it's great.
And that's actually a great point that I didn't even think about, of bringing in new readers.
Right.
And it would actually be kind of interesting to see whether or not him writing that comic did get new readers in, or if when issue 2 comes out, because I believe all of these are being sold in physical form in comic retail shops as well.
Yep.
Which it would be very fun to see. Oh, well, this person came in for BRZRKR, but they were like, oh man, Wolverine, Black, White, and Blood. That's violent too. I want all the violence. With no colors except blood.
Right?
Which, for the record, is a weirdly common thing right now, because we're going to be getting a Carnage book soon of Black, White, and Blood.
Yep.
But that's a different story for a different day.
Yeah. But it'll be interesting. I mean, we know we're going to get a drop-off. 600,000, I bet issue 2 sells 200 or 50. It'll be an epic drop, but like I said before about, where there was nothing, where the number was 0 and then it became 600,000, any number between 0 and 600,000 is a net gain for Boom and everybody else.
Exactly.
So, let's do it.
All right. So on to the next topic. Once again, Robert Kirkman. Kirkman talks about his goals for the Invincible TV show, hoping for the show to go multiple seasons, aiming for 5 to 7 seasons. Which, if you know how long Walking Dead's been on, that's not really bizarre for him.
Nope.
And aims to craft stories beyond what was told in the original comic series. I loved reading that. I loved reading that he does not want to do exactly what was in the comics, because it makes you start... It adds a little bit kind of like what WandaVision was, where people were watching it, they go... That's a comic reference. I know the one that they're talking about where Agatha trades the kids to Mephisto, because it's always Mephisto.
Right.
And I want that kind of hype, that kind of mystery theorizing, as long as it doesn't ruin things like fans like to do. I want that behind the Invincible show, and I want that. I really want it to do well. I really liked the comic for the portion that I did read. I believe it went for something like 114 issues. Some crazy number like that. But what do you think of that? Are you excited for the show?
Yeah, definitely. I loved the series such that I did. I loved it more. There's a period in the book where I'm like, no, like where I stop rooting for Invincible. And regardless of that, the book itself it's a tour de force. It's a terrific series. It helped the comic book industry. It generated new fans. It created new standards and expectations, and of course, it helped Robert Kirkman's career immensely. But I like the idea of it being, number one, like that book very easily translates into a show. It very easily could be adapted, like issue for issue, into a series that would run until the book runs out.
Right.
And no one would be surprised or disappointed. Like, I think people, noobs who have never read or heard of Invincible, would watch the show and be like enamored and enthralled with the twists and turns exactly as they were in the comic book. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, more people, just in general, will have seen the show than have ever read the comic book. And that's a world you're going to have to live with, ladies and gentlemen. Is like, just like Walking Dead, there will be more people who know Walking Dead from the show than know it from the comic book. There will be more people who have watched the Invincible cartoon than read the comic book. And Walking Dead did the same thing, where it diverged from the comic book in a big way. And you can like point to the moments of divergence and go like, this is where the comic went in this direction, this is where the show went in this direction. Mm-hmm. I think that it's great that Kirkman is A, hands-on enough to help foster new directions for this show, and B, allow for new viewing experiences so both audiences can be satisfied with this new show. Because every comic book fan wants them to just do the comic book on a screen, whether it's animation or live action. But that's what they say they want. But when you do one for one, then they go, why can't they innovate? Why can't they be creative? Why do they have to do it this way? They didn't do it exactly like this because it's a comic book and it's interpretive in its own way. So there's no way they could ever have done it satisfactorily for your standards. So they have to do something different. And if they're going to do something different, that's really what you want. You just don't know it. And so it allows for the people who are just watching Invincible because they know it's a show on Amazon, and people who are watching Invincible because they love the comic book, to have wholly new original experiences and to both be equally surprised. That's awesome. That's so smart. It's a good idea. It's a great idea. And I hope they give it to them. Amazon canceled The Tick way too early, so I don't know if they're going to keep Invincible going. I'm sure it costs less to make the show than it does to make The Tick, so we'll see. But and Kirkman has some clout where Edlund simply did not.
Yeah. Something I'm actually really excited about this series is that it's going to be a cartoon series. A lot of stuff kind of like Berserker, we're seeing anime adaptations or live action adaptations. Exactly. And anime is kind of like in the Western culture, like you were saying with comic books, it's not really popularized. People, when you're in a show and you watch anime, you're the nerd. Like, people don't always relate to that. But many, many people, especially in our generation, have watched superhero shows of some sort throughout their time, whether it was Justice League Unlimited, Young Justice, the original Teen Titans, the X-Men 90s show. Yep. Which I don't know anyone that hasn't seen that show. Yeah. I think the fact that it's going to be a cartoon is going to allow a lot of those viewers to really get back into this, get back into the comic world. And like you were saying earlier, any new viewer are new people. It's profit. It's getting people into the show. Right. And it would be fantastic if that translated into people buying the Invincible comics and then just going from there. I think it would be fantastic. Like people are saying in chat, all the different Spider-Man shows. Like, I feel like everyone has watched a cartoon of a superhero at some point in their life, and I think the Invincible being a cartoon is going to be very good for the industry. So
interesting insight, because there are some cartoons that have never left the cultural mindset. People know about Aquaman because of the Super Friends cartoon. Mm-hmm. People refer to the Justice League as Super Friends because of that cartoon. That cartoon that came out years before any of us were born.
Right.
That maybe some of us have never even seen before. They know the cartoon. They know about Aquaman, or they know about the stigma associated with that cartoon. And in many ways also, people have a fondness, an affinity for X-Men. in a way that you wouldn't necessarily have had if you had just read the comics because of that cartoon show.
Yeah.
So you have like both negatives and positives of the impact on the culture by your cartoon. The funny thing is, Image doesn't have their own comic reader. They don't have Image Unlimited or Image Infinite. So the only place you can really buy Image digitally is through the Comixology app, which is owned by Amazon. To be very smart of Amazon to put like a clickable link or something at the end of every episode to the book you can buy.
Yep.
Be a nice way to demonstrate the synergy that should exist between these media platforms. That, like, it used to be, a studio would license a character from the comic book company and make the movie. They had no vested interest in helping the comic book industry because they have no personal financial stake in that industry. But now that most of these mega conglomerates own these industries, it's like Disney producing a Marvel movie, promote the comic, you own the publisher. And use that applicability across the board. So with Image, it's like, Amazon's making the show, Amazon's selling the comics, sell the comics through the show.
Yeah.
You get two sales that way. You're selling the show and you're selling the comic. Please,
exactly.
Come on.
And like another way, this is great. It's reminding me of topics that are not even on the list. They could even do it the reverse way. Buy the comic, you get to watch the episode for free.
Right.
The reason why that popped into my mind was Benny and I were talking the other day that Fortnite is going to be getting Batman in the game, and you can get an exclusive skin if you buy one of the comics.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Exactly. Like when we heard that, honestly, we started asking each other, who's paying who for this? Like, because that's such a Fortnite gets Batman. People go over there for that. Batman comic gives you a Fortnite skin, people go over there. Like, it's so much of a I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing that, I mean, honestly, neither of them could have paid and they'll both make millions from it.
That's the thing. For me, seriously, like if I were DC, if I was head of DC licensing, that would have been one of those things where it's like, you can license the Batman character in your game for free if you let us have an exclusive skin you can download if you buy the comic book and you don't charge us for that.
Yeah.
Like just a tit for tat, no cost, and just let everybody make the money. That's such a good idea. I need to know. I need to know like what issue it is so we can track the sales and see if there is a direct correlation.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure when that does come out, I will have an article of some sort for you and Benny to discuss. So
we need it. Okay.
All right. So moving on to the next one, last one for the day. Excluding our TV show discussion, of course.
Yes.
Spider-Man Spider's Shadow will begin on April 14th, venturing into a what if Spider-Man had kept the Venom symbiote instead of giving it up and becoming Venom himself. This is going to be written by Chip Zdarsky.
Yep.
And once again, this is another story of going into if he had kept the symbiote, which... Very recently, we've had the symbiote Spider-Man comic, which has kind of gone into that idea. The reason why I put this one on here is because of the fact it seems like he might be going in a darker direction.
Oh, yeah.
And I am really hoping for that because I've seen enough of, oh, well, he's heroic and he was able to make Venom a good guy, and it turned out it was Eddie Brock that was the problem.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for this. I think it's going to be a great story. I'm definitely going to be reading it, obviously, for many of our different shows. But also, this would be one that I would pick up regardless.
Right.
Yeah. So what do you think? Are you excited at all? Are you kind of tired of the whole, what if Spider-Man kept the symbiote?
If it was anybody else, I'd be like, forget it. Like, seriously, like that concept of, what if Spider-Man's life totally sucked? What if a horrible thing happened to Spider-Man? I'm like, well, I don't need to what if that. That happens to him all the time. And every other interpretation is like a misery fest. Like every non-canon version of Spider-Man typically is like, it ends in death and misery. And because we can't necessarily end the comic book, the main series, in death and misery. So I'm going to go full tilt death and misery with it.
Yeah.
But it's Chip Zdarsky, so I'm going to buy it.
Exactly.
It's just one of those things where it's like, if it's Chip, I'm going to buy it because Chip knows what he's doing. He not only does he know the character, but he also knows how to balance. It's not like if Robert Kirkman or Garth Ennis were writing this, I'd pass because I know that they like are entertained by death and misery, and they find it funny, and they don't care about they don't care about character more than they care about like the gimmick.
Right.
And for Zdarsky, he has no vested interest in writing something for any reason other than the pure desire to tell that story. He doesn't need to impress Marvel with an epic Spider-Man story. He doesn't need to like beg DC for a Batman series. Like he literally can just do whatever he wants whenever he wants to. And so that kind of freedom and that kind of like luxury for him affords us as readers the opportunity to go, well, then I know he's not doing this for any other reason than here's a book. You know, here's a story I had in my heart that I needed to tell. And so I'm in. You know, like, so maybe it will be a misery fest, but it'll be a well-written misery fest. Like, it'll be well-written, and maybe it won't be. Like, I love Tom Taylor's Deceased universe. I'm sure you do, too.
Oh, yes.
Deceased is amazing, and it's, like, it's infinitely better for me than Marvel Zombies, because Marvel Zombies is, let's explore the fun of watching your most beloved characters be monsters. And Tom Taylor's Deceased is, let's explore the story I'm telling about these characters. And the twist is it's zombies, but it's about these characters and their journey, and it's not about like lol Spider-Man ate Aunt May's brains.
Right.
You know, because it's almost like a sadistic delight that some writers take in like getting like being allowed to muck with your favorite characters, as opposed to Taylor, who's like, I am given an opportunity to tell a story, and I think I've got a pretty damn good one too. And it's like, that's what I'm looking for. And I think with Zdarsky, it probably will end tragically. It probably will be miserable, but it will be fair, and it'll feel authentic, and that's what I want. I just want an authentic experience when I'm reading my books.
Yeah, and this one I included because of the fact that it is going to be written by Chip Zdarsky as a great example of how good authors, you can give them an idea that has been run into the ground.
Yeah.
But if it's given to the right author, people will give it a shot, and it usually turns out amazing. Because I was even going to use Tom Taylor as an example. Like, if he is put on a title, I'm going to read it. It's he's one of those writers that just, if he is writing it, I'm going to give it a chance. Kelly Thompson, she's actually another one of my favorites, that if she's writing something, her Black Widow story, fantastic, of a character I was starting to just get tired of. Like, it was almost always the same story, and she kept it new. She gave us a great story, and I'm really hoping Chip Zdarsky does that for us as well. And I'm actually glad I mentioned Kelly Thompson's Black Widow, because it reminded me, and chat reminded me, of the announcement that the Black Widow movie is only going to be going to theaters.
No.
Oh, it's not. Oh, I must have read the incorrect
breaking
thing recently.
news.
Okay, you tell me.
Okay, they moved Black Widow to July 9th.
Okay.
So Black Widow's not coming out this May. It will be coming out July 9th. It will be coming out day and date. It'll be coming out in theaters and on Disney Plus.
Oh.
For the Mulan / Raya the Last Dragon pricing.
Okay.
So if you want to see Black Widow at home, spend your $30 and you get to rent the movie, or you can go to theaters and see it on the same day.
All right. Well, I'm glad I brought that up and you cleared it up for me, because I must have read one of those classic rumors to get you in to the article kind of when I was going through all this different stuff of it is just in theaters, and they're just lying to me.
Yeah, no, Disney Plus tweeted about it 2 hours ago. They said Black Widow in theaters July 9th and on Disney Plus with premiere access. They didn't say the $30 thing. I said the $30 thing.
Right.
But because they haven't changed the price since Mulan, my assumption is it's $30.
Right. Okay, so that explains why I did actually get a couple. If it was announced earlier today, that explains why a couple people did ask me when I get my news for the show. That definitely makes a little more sense now. All right, so moving into our little bit of a discussion piece, we will keep it rather short because you and Benny have done full videos of these on our Absolutely Marvel and DC
That's true.
channel. We'll start off with Zack Snyder's Justice League. because I did watch that movie just this morning, actually.
Yep.
So it's nice, fresh in my mind. And I enjoyed it. I will say I enjoyed it, but I can see why Benny has been saying, if you liked Justice League, you're going to love the Snyder Cut.
Yep.
But it's not going to it's not going to change your mind if you did not like the original Justice League. So give me your quick rundown on your opinion, and then I'll kind of give a little bit of mine, because I would love to hear what you've got to say about it.
Thank you. It's clearly better than the last one. It is, it's a completely different animal from the previous. We're looking at a snapshot of what Zack Snyder was like as a filmmaker 5 years ago, and it's like, it's very self-referential. It is very deliberate in its execution and in its storytelling. Snyder had a vision and a story to tell, and he actually managed to tell it. Though I think that the 4-hour cut created an opportunity to make something other than a standard movie. You have a movie in there, you have a story in there, a narrative that actually can be followed and makes sense and has like setups and payoff and growth, and it's a genuine thing. It's the thing, not that they should have released a 4-hour cut, but it's the thing the studio should have stood behind in the beginning.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
That's what I would say about that.
And once again, if you want Sal's longer opinion, absolutely Marvel and DC. I got to keep plugging that in there, get you guys over there.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I had to say about the movie was that, first off, I enjoyed it a lot. The reviews were very positive, but I actually started thinking about the reviews, and one of the reasons why I think they are so almost overwhelmingly positive is because the fact that it is a 4-hour long movie means only people that are truly interested are going to invest that time to watch the movie.
That's true. That's a very good point I never thought about, where it's like, who is going to watch this outside of people who know it's already going to be there?
Exactly, because the reason why I hadn't watched it until just today was because it's 4 hours long. I kept thinking, when am I going to be able to sit down for 4 hours, watch it all straight? Because clearly they want you to watch it all straight. Otherwise, they would have kept it as the 4-episode, hour-long thing that they had originally planned.
Right, the show or the whatever series they wanted to do.
Series exactly, which they definitely broke it. The way that it was broken up with those like title screens every now and then, it made sense that they could have done that. But it definitely worked way better as a movie. And I enjoyed it. I did not like the number of things that were put in clearly to make you want more that we're not going to get.
No, that was very, for me, I agree with you. I want you to finish that thought. I'm 100% on board with that. Like, the epilogue was pure self-indulgence to the point where it actually, I think, it kind of didn't hurt the movie, but it does take away from the impact this thing could have had.
Mm-hmm. The epilogue was exactly what I was thinking. Most notably, Martian Manhunter, where it's like, okay, you spent so much to make him look like Martian Manhunter, have him just randomly show up, doesn't even call himself John Johns, to make it a little easier for Bruce. But it was very clearly, no, I just wanted to tease you so that hopefully the fans will talk about it enough that HBO will give me another series on it, because there's no other reason for him to really show up.
No,
outside of like world building,
right? It's just very weird. Like even his inclusion in the Lois Lane sequence where he's like impersonating Martha Kent. It's kind of like, all right. I mean, it does make more sense than Martha flying to Metropolis and flying right back to Kansas for no reason whatsoever outside of like giving Lois a pep talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciated at least she never left. She hasn't given Lois a pep talk. She didn't care. She's sad herself. That was Martian Manhunter the whole time. I had less of an issue with that scene than I did the epilogue scene where he's like, "Hey, Bruce, looks like you had a rough night because you dropped like 20 pounds. You look rough." I just feel like, you shot the epilogue. Like, you didn't need to, one or the other. We either get the setup with Martian Manhunter or we get the student film you made with Joker in it. But not both. But yeah, I was I had less issues, fewer issues, if you will, with Jean's appearance than I did with the overall epilogue nightmare.
Yes, the future one with the Joker, I thought that was also very, very pointless, and like having Batman say the F word, it didn't do anything. It was just there for the shock factor that didn't even shock.
It was actually it disappointed for me.
Yeah,
because it wasn't even like I'm not the kind of person who's like you can't have Batman say the F bomb. Like, he murders people in this movie. Saying the F word is nowhere near the worst thing Batman's done in these movies. But when he actually does say it, it's like it's him yelling at Joker, and it's just like, yeah, I'm gonna get you, and I'm like, okay, like it just felt kind of like silly as opposed to it being even cool. It was just. I don't know. Just felt a little weird.
Yeah. It
wasn't too excited.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It honestly, the second he said it, I was like, oh, well, this kind of got a little less. Like, it didn't matter. Like, I was like, oh, that's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
I did like it. I did find it funny that I've seen on Twitter people being like, oh, Batman would also never put a machine gun on a tank or something like that. And my first thought was, you understand that he's prepared for everything, and a machine gun's kind of what you need when you're fighting a parademon invasion.
Right.
You can't you can't tactically subdue all of these parademons. Like, it was just the fact people were complaining. I was like, really? Like,
with the guns, like I've lost that fight. Like me being mad about Batman killing people or using guns. He had Gatling guns on the Batmobile in '89.
Right. So,
and he dropped grenades on people in '89. Like I've lost that fight. The idea of Batman not murdering people or not using weapons or guns, I still feel that way, but I'm done complaining about it in movie form, because Hollywood is just like, it's just faster if he kills people. It's easier if he just kills people. Like, and Zack Snyder's the one who was like, and he uses guns like a lot. Like that, for me, that was somebody who deliberately went against the grain when it came to like a fundamental like aspect of Batman's character. But again, like complaining about machine guns and killing people with the Batmobile, like I'm done complaining about that at this point. Do I like seeing it? No. But am I surprised by it? Like, by the time I saw the Snyder Cut, I'm like, this is somebody else's Batman. It ain't my Batman, but like I do dig Affleck's portrayal. I like the suit, all that stuff. But like, we're not doing that. Like, I'm not complaining about that part of the Batman character in film. I have plenty of versions of Batman where he doesn't do that. And I don't think that this version is the one to change all of it. So that for me is no big deal. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that was like really in the deliberate method through which Snyder gave us the story. It felt authentic, and it worked on a lot of levels. Like I actually found myself like really enjoying certain sequences, or being surprised by certain stuff, or and having those emotional turns that you put in movies to manipulate your audience to feel those things. Like I like that. Like Joe Morton's sequence at the end, with the mother box. I'm like, good stuff. This is a good scene. Like, this is good, and then having it make sense and why he did it in the first place. I'm like, yeah, wow, that really tracks.
Right.
Flash's powers and how he uses them to, with time. I'm like, this is good stuff. This is a real use of that character. Like, all right. Again, like, it's just there's a lot of solid stuff in that movie.
Yeah, I was actually gonna mention that as well.
Please.
Of the action, the CGI, the fight scenes. I loved them all. Honestly, I loved all of them, and in the original Justice League, I was not a fan of the Flash. I thought the Flash was like a very poor use of the character, and they actually did him justice in this. They made him goofier. They made him fault the fact that he like trips multiple times. Like, they give reasons for him to do these different things. Like you said, the different ways that he uses his power. I don't want to truly spoil the ending because it was just such a big moment that I was like, oh, wow. Like,
Yeah.
I'm invested in this. I will say they missed an opportunity of at some point having Grant Gustin show up when he's in the Speed Force to replicate that scene from Crisis.
From the show?
Yeah, from the show. I was like, that would have been a great little thing to put in, even if it was just one of the epilogue things. But overall, I really enjoyed it. If you did enjoy Justice League, I would suggest checking out Zack Snyder's cut for it on HBO Max. And
Be
then
part of the cultural sensation. Like, it's a thing that happened that whose like will never come again. So try it out. You know, it's worth checking out.
I did see a small rumor, and it was definitely a rumor to clickbait people of, oh, the Russo brothers are thinking about their 6-hour Infinity War cut. I'm like, get that out of here. Don't even mention such a thing.
No.
But speaking of Marvel, we will go into our last topic of the day, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Episode 1. Yep. Oh my gosh. They have been doing such a good job with these shows. Mm-hmm. I did not honestly expect movie quality shows on every single episode and have it just such a different vibe from WandaVision to show they're not all going to be the same. They're all going to have their own personality to the show, and already they have me hooked. I'm so excited for the next episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Definitely.
What about yourself?
I can't wait. It's a great show. It does a nice job of balancing action with character, and I saw somebody mention somebody like a critic online who mentioned that like it was kind of like we got that one action sequence and that's kind of it. And I was like, yeah, that's true. But I think that as long as we get at least one action sequence like that opening one per show, like per episode, no complaints whatsoever. Because I don't, I like action. I enjoy action sequences and fight scenes and stuff. But like for me, it's about character interaction. So I dug it. I liked how the whole flying helicopter sequence went, but for me it was exciting to see all kinds of interactions, and it was fun. It was as fun as any other scene in the movie. One of the takeaways for me of this particular episode, the first episode, was how well shot the show was.
Oh yeah,
it was just really, really like nice cinematography in this. I mean, it's very. It wasn't like it was breaking any barriers or doing anything. It's not, we aren't talking about like Hitchcock creating new ideas here. But just it was a pretty show. It was a pretty show. It was very the action sequence was really well shot, but any dialogue scenes really well executed and equally well executed. So it's like it's not like, oh, I got an action sequence director to make the show. And he's like, really awesome action dialogue. I don't know what the hell to do with these characters. Like, I don't know. They sit in a booth and they look at each other. Like, no. The scenes, like the scene between Bucky and his therapist, is so beautiful. Yeah. And it's just really well shot. And I was like, that's really nice. And having like not hacky actors doing those scenes made it feel even more like authentic. Like I really liked. I love Anthony Mackie. I actually really care more about Bucky now than I ever did.
Same.
Because like I was sick of Bucky. By the time Civil War comes out, I'm like, kill this guy. Who cares about him? Steve, your obsession with this dude is like borderline sick. You need to get your shit together. Kill this guy. I could not care less about Bucky. But now, in the absence of Steve, it's this dude who's like trying to make amends, and he can't. He's just like, I have no friends, I have no life, I have nothing in my life, and it's like, that's cool, and I like this. And
not only the cinematography that was good, the pacing.
Yeah.
I was a little worried that because it is focusing on two very important characters that are not always interacting like in WandaVision of Vision and Wanda living together and having that kind of stuff. I was worried that it was going to be a little too fast paced of swapping back and forth, making it, we're done with Falcon. Okay, now we're with Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
But I thought they did a great job of never making you feel rushed. Like you got to experience the show. You did not feel like, okay, I got to process what just happened so that I can focus on what is now happening. No, they did such a good job with this show entirely. I really hope that it stays consistently this good. Dylan and I have actually been doing our talks on Superman and Lois, also on Absolutely Marvel and DC. And we're talking about how some of the episodes, they're not consistent. One episode is a lot more fast paced than another one. And so I'm really hoping Falcon and Winter Soldier does not end up that way, and that every episode is going to be consistent. WandaVision showed that they are capable of it. So I'm really hoping it continues.
I gotta say, I really liked the message and the like social, like kind of meta commentary that you got through Sam and his sister. But I think we had like one scene too many. Like for me, that was the part where you mentioned like, it didn't drag. I agree that the show is fast paced, and we got equal proportionate attention to Sam's like world and what his struggle is, and Bucky's. But like, yeah, I get it. Like your sister has no money and you don't want to sell the boat. Do we need another scene of you on the boat? Like, you know what I mean? Fair. Like we could trim it. I feel like you really could have trimmed it down. Like the bank scene was enough, but you don't get enough acting from his sister. It's right. Less is more, but like, so you do need that scene of them at the market, outside the boat. So I guess I liked that. And I think that's really all you needed. You just needed that scene where he talks to her and and they're unloading stuff off the truck, and then you cut. Like, not cut the whole show, but just those are the two scenes you keep. That scene and the boat scene. But like, I just felt like there was a lot of reiterating, yeah, I get it, but at least they all service the story, because they're telling you not only, okay, so like, yes, his sister has hard times. Yes, Sam has... Like, Sam is clearly overcompensating. But you also get this, like, element of, like, Sam, like, you're overcompensating. Yes, you were blipped for 5 years, but, like, you were blipped longer than that. Like, you chose the Air Force and the Avengers over us. And so you're only here because you don't have anybody else. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's kind of interesting. Like, so I appreciate that you get, and as a show, you have more room to breathe and you can explore that. But for me, for brevity's sake, I was like, all right. Like, for me, every scene with Bucky was essential and important. Every scene with Bucky, I was like, ooh, that was a good one. Like, with Sam, not every scene made me think, like, this is 100% in service to the story. I was just kind of like, but who knows, But I will say, I did dig all of it. I still enjoyed the show.
Yeah. I'm really excited. The twist at the end with our new Captain America. I actually saw a thing, because obviously everyone is making memes about this guy. And I believe somewhere he came out being like, I really hope people don't start hating me because of this. Right. And because of all these memes being like, this is the discount version of Captain America. And I just thought it was kind of funny. It'll be fun to see where that goes, because we all discussed, would Bucky take the shield? Would Sam take the shield? Are they going to be the ones? No, the United States government is the one that decides who's the next Captain America. And when that happened, I was like, that makes sense. Obviously, they would be the ones that would do it, but like the way that he finds out of, they didn't even inform him. It was just on TV, and he's like, wait a second.
Oh, they tricked him. They were like, no, you can't, there is no Captain America. You can't have the shield. We're going to put it in the Smithsonian. And then immediately, they spent, call it $200,000 to create a dog and pony show to trick Sam into leaving the shield with them. Yeah. So they can legally argue, no, you gave it up. Mm-hmm. We changed our minds. No, that was all real. We just changed our minds. Like, no, you didn't, you liar.
Right.
Good stuff in terms of, that's what people, they do that. Yeah, it's messed up, but that's what they do. I hope that John Walker is not just a cartoon bad guy.
Yeah, I agree.
Where he's like, I'm Captain America. What do you want? No. I hope he's just like, no, they told me you gave it up, man. And it's like, yeah, I did, but Okay, but like, what's the difference? Like, what's the problem? Like, I want to see like a kind of like morally ambiguous, or at the very least, like a dude who, is like, I was called upon my government asked me to be Captain America. It was a hard choice to make,
Right.
but I chose it. Don't give me a hard time. Like, it took me a long time to come to terms with being it.
Yeah.
Don't show up and tell me that I'm an asshole. Like, I kind of want to see that. Like, and I think that the show, we're only talking about the first episode, but it's given nuance enough to be like, I think we're gonna get that.
Yeah.
I think so. And of course, Mephisto will be in the show.
Well, obviously. I mean, John Walker
just what episode
is
will it be in
Mephisto.
there?
Like, that's
There you go.
obvious.
He's Mephisto. Yeah. How else can you explain his face in that helmet? That's the face of the devil. No question.
Exactly. But that brings us to the conclusion of today's episode of Absolute Comics. I hope you all had a great time. Benny will be back again next week, assuming everything goes well with his move and we don't get another 3 feet of snow randomly, which it's Colorado. I would not honestly be surprised. If you want to find more of Sal, he is at Sal Says What, as well as the Comic Pop channel on YouTube. If you want to find more of me, I'm on twitch.tv/Silu91, CYLOO91. And if you want early access to this show, you can get it on both of our Patreons, patreon.com/comicstorian or patreon.com/comicpop. This is also sponsored by G Fuel. Use code COMICS at checkout. Save 10% off your order. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.